So welcome to another episode of the Mind Takeaway podcast.
Welcome.
Special episode coming from inside our car. Maybe we should explain that. It's very hot outside. We are currently at our base in the UAE. And I would hazard a guess, even though it's not even 11 a.m. here, it's definitely in the late 30s already.
Yeah, it is quite hot.
So yeah, if we were to try and record it outside, I think it would be slightly ambitious because we'd probably just be really hot and sweaty and get really flustered. So here we are.
Probably a very short episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this episode, we wanted to talk about what we've learned working together over the last 10 years that we've been married. We've known each other and been together longer than that. But the last 10 years, we've actually been living together and running two different businesses together now.
Yeah, so it's been this year, earlier in April, it was our 10th anniversary. And so normally for anniversaries or for certain dates, we tend to reflect a bit more, I think all of us, and see what we've learned, what challenges have happened in the previous period. And so we were looking at 10 years and looking at what have we learned, and thought it would be maybe an interesting episode to record because we also work together. So it could be interesting for co-founders, it could be interesting for people that are in relationship, running companies, running businesses. It could be interesting for leaders in general because, again, all are those relationships and close communication, closely working with people. And if you really look at the time spent at work, you probably spend half of your life with some of people that you work with. And so, it would, I think, be good to say that those are all very important personal relationships as well as business relationships. And so we thought it would be useful to see what were our challenges, what we learned from it, how did we overcome it, and what could you learn from our experience as well, or at least get curious about.
We'll give you some actionable takeaways. We'll try and make it as simple as possible. I know we've done this before about what we've learned with our clients. This time it's from the lens of from us working together, not really about the client's insights and us working with the client as a coach. Us just being human beings and working together as life partners, co-founders, business partners, directors. And it's interesting because some of them might be quite surprising. They definitely were to us when we were thinking about, the shopping list of some of the takeaways that we could share with you. So we'll start with one that you've probably heard us talk about before, which is listening to understand. Mm-hmm. And what we mean by that is our take on listening, it's not active listening where you're trying to actively do something to become a better listener and listening to a person or a group of people. For us, listening to understand is actually emptying your mind and, where possible, trying to not have any preconceived processing going on or trying to work out what you would say in the future. It's really just listening as much as you can and being as open-minded as you can. And it is tricky at first. I used to boast about being a really good listener back in the day. And then when many moons ago, when we were in training with a very good mentor of ours, he was like, Peter, not sure you are listening. You might be a good audio engineer and you can process audio and you've got all that detail, but, think about what you've just said. And what I realized, it was a big insight that I was kind of a bit of a smart ass, which we all end up being. If you've worked in the corporate world, maybe you've learned how to debate and hold your own. Maybe you go to many meetings where, the loudest voice wins and all of that thing, or you've got to have an eloquent, very clever, witty thing to say, and there's all that pressure on being 3 steps ahead. But that's not listening. And it certainly isn't listening to understand, because if you're already working out what to say in the future, you've already probably lost 50% of what's going on for that other person. Mm. And a good segue into listening to understand is that when we listen to another person, the tricky bit is we already have unconscious biases. We already have preconceived ideas. and all, a whole load of lived experience, because Mira and I are, I'm 50 this year. Mira's a bit younger than me. And, so you do come with a bit of baggage. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just that you need to be aware that when you listen to someone, there's all of these things at play. And it might sound like, oh, well, what's the point? Listening sounds really difficult. But it's not. It gets gradually easier. Mm-hmm. And even us included, even though we're coaches, we try to practice the art of listening every day. And there's always gifts there, and there's always surprises, especially when you can be humble and a bit vulnerable and go, oh, okay, I thought I knew what was going on, but actually I'm listening with a different lens and I'm hearing something else. I'm actually hearing what Mira says versus what I think Mira should say or what I believe is going on, if that makes sense.
What we've noticed, or actually what I've noticed, is that when personally, if we get into an argument, or if we, if I'm trying to explain something and I'm not being heard, and so our emotions run high. And what I've noticed is that in the moment when I drop into listening, everything changes. Absolutely everything changes. And so listening also creates safe environment, and we've noticed that at work as well. The moment you start listening, other people respond differently. People feel heard, people feel safe. And so it's not, I think it comes with the intention as well. You need to notice that you're not listening. You need to notice that you could do better, and then make it as your intention. I don't know, when you're journaling in the morning, or when something happens, say to yourself, I'd like to do it differently next time. So your brain somewhere makes a note of it. You're dropping into the space where you're not arguing with that person in your head. You're not being, oh, why is this always happening to me? Or why am I always the one to listen and step back? Listening isn't stepping back. And I think that was one of my big learnings, is that if I'm listening, if I'm being the person that is taking the moment out of my head and trying to understand what's really going on. Why is this person reacting the way they react? Why are they saying what they're saying? Or why are they doing what they're doing? I'm not stepping back. I'm not making myself anywhere smaller or less important or anything. I'm just doing that because it makes sense. And sometimes I'm the one that does that. Sometimes Peter is the one that does it. And I think you need to kind of learn and see the moments where other person is doing the same thing, not always thinking that you are the one that does it. Because I don't think it's personal. I think in relationships, one of the things that I've learned, and I guess both of us, is that lots of the stuff that's happening in relationship, in relating to each other, is not personal. We make it personal. We think it's personal. We make it about other person or about ourselves. But actually, lots of these things we are just playing things and ideas and belief systems that have been created before, experiences that we had before. We are labeling it, we are putting it onto something that's happening now and acting to that, not on what's really happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think it's a good segue into being open and honest.
Yeah.
So everyone would go, duh, of course, but the amount of people we work with, co-founders, boards of directors, teams, there isn't so much openness and honesty. And even though they might say that there is, we can all get better at it, us included. And what we mean by that is that to be open and honest, you need to be quite vulnerable with each other. Mm-hmm. And quite often we see founders, two co-founders, they've started this amazing company, they've got some good funding, but then their relationship starts to erode because there's no openness and honesty, there's no transparency. And that really erodes trust, because tell me if I'm wrong, Mira. And, I can think of past relationships where they haven't gone right. Or, I'm just not in contact with that person. And it takes two. Because quite often, when there's no openness and honesty and the trust is eroded, we start to second guess ourselves and live in our own heads.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, as founders, as business owners, as partners, as directors of a company, if you do that, that's when you're going to run into trouble. Because it's not really a knowledge problem, it's a vulnerability problem. It's really, okay, I'm not happy today. I didn't like what you said, so let's put it on the table. And it can be really uncomfortable. I still get uncomfortable if I'm not feeling right, or one of us has got annoyed, or I've put my foot in it and I know I've done wrong. Usually between directors in teams, between groups of leaders, between, founders, there isn't always that honesty and trust, so they won't just say, hey, sorry, I've been a bit of a dick. What will happen is that they will not say anything, ignore the elephant in the room, and then that drives a wedge between the two. It erodes the partnership. It can, have an impact on the credibility between each other. And then if you start to, question and not trust each other, then how can you run a company together? How can you be a partnership? How can you be a proper team? How can you then work together and get the best out of each other? So what we've learned the hard way over the years, and especially during COVID, for example, where, it was quite early stages of our company, we had to get very quickly good at just saying whatever we feel, whatever we think, even though it might sound ridiculous or, I'm really annoyed at you, and I know if I tell you the truth, Mira's probably going to get angry, and then it's going to escalate into a heated discussion or an argument. But actually, quite often it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Because both of us, when we've been, speaking to each other through that lens of being that open and being that honest, there might be a bit of uncomfortableness at first, but then quite often I'll be like, yeah, thanks for that. You've cleared the air. I'm glad you took the initiative because I was a bit uncomfortable, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The reason why we don't communicate and we are not honest, again, is some of the previous experiences, some of the things that we learned in school, maybe from our parents, from society itself. You don't talk about these things, or if I say this person will react in this and that way, and so we are very uncomfortable of being open and honest and being vulnerable. But actually, exactly that thing, when you are not blaming, not shaming, not criticizing, but you're really being honest, how you feel and why you feel the way you feel, it creates a connection. And, people talk about, let's create a connection. There is so much stuff there about connection, but it's that simple.
Yeah. And I think the next one kind of complements it as well. Don't hold grudges
Yeah.
between you as directors, between you as founders, between you as partners in crime, romantically, because, and we could all be childish. I can... in the past, I would definitely hold a grudge with the best of them where I'd be like, yeah, I'll show you by just not doing anything. There's that passive aggressiveness. I'm really pissed off at the person and I'm really annoyed. They've done whatever, they've wronged me. And instead of just clearing the air and having it out and discussing it and put it on the table, I'll just ignore them for a month and just... a month later, the person clearly has no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm still thinking about the grudge in the past. And then the problem is that quite often, which is comedy, right? The poor person that you're holding a grudge to still doesn't have a clue what you're on about. So if you're acting erratically and misbehaving, which it is, it's misbehaving, and it's really... goes back on what we said, it will definitely denigrate trust. It will definitely have a detrimental impact on your relationship. So where possible, and it's not easy because you can annoy each other. Mira and I get on each other's nerves quite often. But again, we'll, clear the air and sometimes even sheepishly discuss stuff thinking, oh, what's the other person going to say? But it's always really valuable to have that discussion. And whenever we do, I would say 100% of the time, it resolves most things. And that's what builds trust. That is what builds credibility between a partnership. The next one.
Yeah, and you know what you'll also have? You'll have a lot of, I think one of the things that we've learned really well is to let go.
Yeah.
We can, it comes with don't hold grudges, but sometimes you don't even have to. Sometimes you'll just realize that the argument you had was stupid and pointless, and let go of it. And it's not. I think it's really important to be able to let go of things and not dwell on them and not create it, not make it bigger than it is, because it comes up and seeps into everything else that you do as a partnership. And where that comes from is getting to know each other, is really getting to know each other. I mean, I think we know so much about each other, why we act the way we act, why and it doesn't mean that you still don't react to these things. I know that Peter will go into certain way of thinking when he's stressed out. And I would get triggered because, sometimes I'm tired, my energy is not, maybe I'm stressed about something else even. And so I won't be able to listen and I won't hear, and this is where the argument starts. But then there is a moment of clarity in the whole thing where I start listening or not reacting. He then has a moment to go, actually, I'm stressed out about this. But that's not the point. I'm actually doing everything that I need to. It's all good, and then that's it. So it's not like we're fixing each other, or we're just giving each other space, not reacting, listening. Sometimes when I drop into the listening space, that will create the space, the safe space for Peter to hear himself, and the other way around. And it's often the way of. I think what we got really good is creating that space for each other and in a way coaching each other sometimes. It's not like we do that as part of our work, but it just so happens maybe because we don't blame or shame or criticize each other. It's we are allowing each other space to be who we are and learn from our own experience,
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that if you get into a partnership where there's trust, there's openness, you're, trying where possible to listen, to understand, you get to be a mirror for each other and you learn a hell of a lot. Like, we've learned about each other, as Mira said, for sure, but you learn so much about yourself when you're open and honest, because you're like, wow, okay, now I get why I just reacted the way I did because of a past experience. That's some kind of weird trauma that went on before. It's got nothing to do with Mira. It's got nothing to do with the business. It's got nothing to do with the future. It's just something from the past. And now I know that actually that can't hurt me. Interesting that it bubbled to the surface. Okay, next, what else? And it's interesting that there's always stuff we can learn. And there's always things that come up from the past. And I'm like, Mira, what is that, But it's really good that it does, because these things, slowly but surely get addressed. And it's not that we're looking for it, but as a happy, positive byproduct of having a good, high-functioning relationship where you're not misbehaving and you're learning from each other, and there's that psychological safety, there's openness and trust, you also get other gifts. And the next one is, which is always what I've always struggled with, but we've worked through it a lot. We cannot be good at everything. And to be fair, I'm not saying I am, far from it, right? So I know where my limitations are, but when you run a company, you kind of have to try everything, and you kind of have to be, a generalist and a jack of all trades, especially in the early stages where the money's quite short, or you're bootstrapped, you're running the business on a shoestring until you get revenue and it starts to flow and all of that. But even in our small company where there's the two of us and we have various partners around the world to do other bigger projects, we have to have these open and honest discussions about, okay, what are we both good at? And let's not bullshit each other, because, I'm very good at parking stuff that I don't want to do or I don't want to get involved in. And Mira knows this for sure. Anything related with finance and taxes, I'm like, ugh, it's like the devil, But sometimes I've got to be grown up about it. And Mira might not have the capacity, or she's working with more clients than me this month, or she's working on a bigger project that I'm not working on. So I need to concede that even though I don't want to do it, I can't be a child. I need to work on, scanning all the receipts and making sure the invoices are done and speaking to the tax people or whatever it is. And yeah, it's definitely what I still am working through. But the other side of it is that Mira and I luckily don't have that problem. But quite often when we work with a group of leaders or founders, what usually gets in the way is the ego of, I want to be the CEO. I'm the boss. I start the company. It's my baby. And as a company gets scaled up and grows and you get funding, you need to be damn sure you're being honest between you all as a group, and having discussions with the people that are funding you and being open and honest about, am I the right person to do that job? And if the answer's no, if you know deep down that you're probably not the best person to be the CEO or the GM or whatever it is, then you need to learn to step aside and give someone else the opportunity to do that. And if you've got someone in the team, great. So Mira and I have got really good, as Mira said, to know each other and to understand where our limitations are, where our boundaries are being set, and from our very different experiences of life, what we can bring to the table. Mira is very good at stuff that I can't do and vice versa. And that's really helped us as a business. So a good example, during COVID, I was trying to micromanage Mira. I was trying to do everything. And, there was definitely some stress about the situation, but it got in the way. And then we had to clear the air by having an open and honest discussion about, okay, that didn't work. Sorry, I clearly didn't see that. I'm trying to be your boss, and we're both the boss. And our roles are overlapping, who's going to do what. So we just started to divide and conquer. And, it started off very rudimentary, very simple. We just listed all of the roles and responsibilities on one, a one-pager. And then we discussed, what's our best guess, who's better to do what. And some of them we still didn't get consensus, and it took months to work out. But it's far better to do that as early as you can in any business relationship. Otherwise, I'll guarantee it will absolutely get in the way. Because quite often, most of our work is slowing a couple of founders down, having slowly but surely more open and honest, truthful conversations, and then clearing the air, and then allowing both parties or the group to see what got in the way. And it's usually egos. I don't want to give my baby up. I feel like I'm relinquishing control of the company. By the way, you're not. You did found it. You started this amazing company and you've got this great product. But if the sure way of killing a company fast is if you force yourself to be in a role that deep down that you haven't got the skill set or the experience or
passion.
Yeah, or maybe you're passionate about your company, but and you think you want to be the CEO, but to be honest, to be the CEO of a company, even a small one, it's some fair bit of responsibility, and all of these roles carry different weights and experiences and a different skill set, and it's totally different way of working and thinking. So that's definitely one I would say that's one of the top takeaways, right? Because quite often in our work, that's what we're reverse engineering for groups of leaders, whether it's a board, whether it's a group of senior directors, or like we said, a group of founders who are, they've got over the bootstrapping part, they've got money, but then suddenly they're growing fast and they're all arguing about who does what.
Yeah, and it's again, our ability to be comfortable being in that vulnerable space, understanding, and with ourselves. I think it's first with ourselves to be vulnerable and seeing things, and then it can happen with our other people, and getting over our fears. Creating that space where that can happen. And then that's a healthy healthy business, healthy relationship. It doesn't mean that, I think people I think I did live in illusion in the past when I was much younger, that the good relationship is a relationship in which nobody ever argues or has differences of opinion, or it's always lovely, but that's not the case, because that means that you are never actually feeling safe of expressing yourself, or you're scared of other people's emotions, and then you're managing their emotions. So knowing that it's okay to have different emotions, and that it's safe to express yourself, and that it's safe to, when other person is not in a great mood, it's fine, it's safe. And I think that was one of my learnings, is to not manage other people's emotions, because they're all grown-ups. They can deal with that. At least they can learn from it. And that was helping with lots of my energy, and that was the way, that was part of my boundaries. And I think that these finding roles, finding what takes our energy, what gives us energy, how we are different, and how being different isn't bad, but it's actually complementary, has helped to create some boundaries and protect ourselves individually, but then as a company, and as a couple, as a relationship. So I think one of the big things that we had, it was at one point when I said, is the business more important to you than I am? You remember that? And because that's something that I've been struggling in that moment, because it was a stressful period of time. And that was my vulnerability, to actually say what I'm scared of, what I'm thinking of. And then Peter was like, I don't even know, why would you think that? Like, that was not even in his anywhere. And then when we cleared the air, where we actually discussed it openly, we realized that actually our relationship is more important than the business. Then the business started thriving, and we connected in a much better way. So yeah, one of the examples.
Yeah, my answer was, really? No. If
you were shocked.
Yeah,
you were surprised that I was even
I was like, I don't know why you even think that. Absolutely not. This is more important, not the business. We can start a business anytime or switch it off, whatever. So yeah, it's really good to be able to clear the air, but it can be tricky, and we, like I say, we work with many groups of leaders and founders and that have spent months, even years sometimes, imagine, not clearing the air. So sometimes it takes us coming in as mediators, or, helping them see a different way forward. So I hope this has been useful. I mean, we've got more for sure. Maybe we make another episode. We wanted to keep this one short, so it's impactful and bite-sized, and there's enough takeaways in there. So as always, let us know what you think about this one. Has it been useful? Feedback is always valuable to us, and thank you for watching and listening.
Bye.
Bye.